Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid Bhatt. Our topics for today's discussion start with the Palestine-Israel relationship and the decision that is to be made today as to how Israel is going to continue its incursion into Palestinian territories. There is going to be a very major decision today. How is this colonial land grab going to continue? Will there be a decision for the Palestinians, against the Palestinians? Will the United States and what it has also been saying about the Palestinian peace plan, will it have some impact on the Israeli decision? Will the Europeans have some impact on the Israeli decision or not? We will be discussing that in our first segment of the day. Let's go towards our second segment. It concerns the Indian atrocities in Kashmir, the Indian annexation of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and now the Indian authorities calling even Azad Jammu and Kashmir as Pakistan occupied Kashmir. That notwithstanding the continued incursion of Indians in Balochistan and other parts of Pakistan, and we've also heard our Prime Minister say that what has happened at the Karachi Stock Exchange building has also links to the Indians. Now, Prime Minister has been highlighting the Kashmir issue on different fora. He's been saying it on the United Nations platform, on the OIC. There have been different meetings on that, and of late he has also talked to the United Nations again to highlight the Kashmir issue. Will it have any impact or not? This will be our second segment. Our third segment is something that we've been talking about since the beginning of this week, the sexual harassment case in the LGS A1 school in Lahore that has caused a huge rift because it is for the very first time that a large number of students, female especially, have come out with texts, with incriminating texts, WhatsApp messages and pictures that have been sent by four different participants, four different teachers of that school that have since then been sacked. But is that enough, or does more need to be done? Does there need to be a regulation put into place, a stringent regulation that controls this from happening in the future? Our third segment. Our fourth segment will be a short beeper on the stock market, on how that has been or not been affected by the Karachi Stock Exchange incident or not. And of course, today, ladies and gentlemen, is the 1st of July and is also the National Doctors' Day. Doctors, ladies and gentlemen, are on the forefront. They are our frontline workers, especially in these days of the COVID-19 pandemic. We will be also hailing the services of the doctors. Many of them we know very well as well. Many of them are part of our family as well. And somehow, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, we consider them more close to us because they are the ones who help us, who help our near and dear ones in times of distress. So today is also the National Doctors' Day. Let's start with the first segment. Palestinians' land grabbing by Israel is nothing new. It has been continuing since a long time. Now, this latest phase of colonial land grab will be starting today. This will be a decision that will be taken by the Israeli government. Israel will initiate the latest plan of this colonial land grab by annexing the West Bank settlement as well as the Jordan Valley. They have little fear that there is going to be any opposition to that because the Americans support them, back them in the crime. Of course, Donald Trump had talked about a deal of the century, a plan for a complete Palestinian surrender. But will that have or not have any impact on this latest phase of the Israeli confiscation of Palestinian lands? Now, ever since the Nakba, you know very well that the Great Palestinian Catastrophe, dislocation and mass exodus that accompanied the founding of the State of Israel in 1948, Zionists have been gnawing away, have been trying to occupy the land that is Palestine. And there has been a 1967 Arab-Israel war as well, as we very well know. Now, both the factions, whether it be the Hamas or the Fatah, have denounced Tel Aviv's plan, with Hamas warning that the annexation will be a declaration of war. But in between this declaration of war and an actual war, what is going to happen? Will there be some middle ground? Will there be some parties that will try to go for some kind of a deal between Israel and Palestine? We will be talking about that in our very first segment. More details after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom, and our first topic of the day is a Israeli annexation of Palestinian land in the West Bank. It plans to start this new phase from today, that is the 1st of July. Now, after meeting with US officials, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had said in a statement that they had discussed the question of sovereignty, which they are currently working on and will continue to work on in the coming days. He did not elaborate further on this. Now, July the 1st, that is today, looms as a possible decision day. Opposition camps have squared off for weeks, trying to either force or stay Netanyahu's hand. But for this big day, but the Prime Minister's decision is unknown or unmade. Abu Bakr Matar joins us to talk more about this. Abu Bakr, thank you very much to have joined us. Abu Bakr, what do you make of this very important decision today that is to be made by the Israelis as far as the annexation of the West Bank is concerned? Will it or will it not happen?
See, actually, Palestine as a whole is under occupation. And as we Palestinians believe, and the whole world believe, this state, a fake state, and it is an occupier state.
Yes.
This Jewish state, which is named as Israel, actually, is doing a kind of work which actually just related to a thief mentality and occupation mentality. So this accession, if it happens, it is not new, and it's something we are not expecting from them, because we are already expecting such what you can say strategy from the Israelis, from the Jewish, because actually they have this strategy which they think that they have to get all the Arab land under their control, under their occupation, and under their sovereignty. It is not only Palestine. They think to also have Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and part of Egypt as well, especially Sinai. So this is their plan. They are working on it. We as Muslims, I think, we as Arabs as well, we as the Muslim world should also move against this movement. We should support Palestinians, support the Palestinian cause as well, not only to stop this annexation, but to stop the whole occupation of Palestine and to remove the Israeli and the Jewish out from Palestine.
All right. Now, Abu Bakr, you talk about the Arab countries and how there are so many other countries that Israel plans to annex in the coming months and years. Now, how important in these times is the role of the OIC in your point of view?
See, the OIC role is always was an important thing, but unfortunately, the OIC have never worked in a very strong decision. You see, we haven't seen them doing much good for Palestine since the beginning. The Palestinian people are suffering from the occupation. Kashmiris also are suffering from the occupation. Indians are doing so bad in Kashmir. Israelis, Yehudis are doing also so bad in Palestine. Unfortunately, the role of OIC have never been very effective, but it is actually very important. But so far, the Muslims and the Muslim countries, which actually part of OIC, have never taken an action that really can stop either the Israeli and the Jewish from Palestinian occupation or stop the Indians from Kashmir occupation.
All right. Now, Abu Bakr, both Hamas and Fatah have denounced this latest decision that the Israelis have taken. And Hamas has warned that an annexation will be a declaration of war. Will there be a strong reaction if this happens?
Of course. You see, it's not only from Hamas, it's from all Palestinians. Hamas, as a very important, you can say, part of Palestinian people, actually, they have the strength to do a strong reaction. And we as Palestinians all actually welcome all kind of reactions against the Israeli, against the occupation, and against this new strategy of the Israeli. But still, we don't only rely on Palestinians, we rely on the whole Muslim world, because the Palestinian issue is not only for Palestinians. This place is holy, not only for Palestinians, but it is holy for the whole Muslim.
All right. Now, Abu Bakr, United Nations has also a very important role to play when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet said that the annexation is illegal, period. How important do these words matter to the world community, to the United Nations, and to Palestine?
It matters a lot, and we really value such statements. But we also understand that not only an annexation is illegal, the whole Israeli state is an illegal state. The whole Israeli state should be removed. This whole state is illegal. So United Nations should not only speak about this annexation, but they have also to speak about the whole occupation of Palestine. We will never accept the situation of occupying a Palestinian land. We, as Palestinians, always will fight for Palestine, for the whole freedom of Palestine, not only for parts of Palestine. So,
All right, now, you say that you will talk, you will always work for the whole of Palestine and not parts of Palestine. Now, in this whole comes also the plan, the peace plan, the Palestinian peace plan by the US President Donald Trump. How much do you value or not value it? What is your take on this?
Well, actually, we don't value any peace plan with our land occupiers, with our people's killer. You see, the Yahudis, actually, they have killed our Palestinian people. They have killed children, women, men, and they have occupied our land. So peace, it only will work for their favor. We want our land back. We want our freedom back. And we want actually also the revenge from all what they have done to the Palestinian people there.
But Abu Bakr, how is that going to happen? Is there a long-term plan by the Palestinians, by Hamas, by Fatah in order to counter all this that is being done by the Israelis, by other forces that support the Israeli government?
You see, the Israeli occupation to Palestine, it is, of course, it will not last for long. It is not something original. It is something, false. So it will be removed. Maybe it will take some time, but we are sure that it will be removed. And not only by Palestinian hand, it will be removed also by the whole Muslim Ummah's hand. We rely on our people here in Pakistan, we rely on our people in Palestine, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in everywhere.
But Abu Bakr, it's very interesting, it's very, intelligent to view that as a collective effort by all the Muslim community. But since Israel has annexed Palestine and is continuing to annex parts of Palestine, has there really been something that has been done by the world community, by the Muslim community? What's your take on that?
Unfortunately, yes, you're right. Nothing has been done so far. And that's the thing. We blame the Muslim world for their quietness. We blame them for the neglectedness of the Palestinian issue. We blame them for not doing the right thing for Palestinians. But we still believe that there is always a hope, a big hope, in the Muslim people everywhere, and all the Muslim world, not only in one country. I mean all. You see, from whether they are here in Pakistan, whether they are in Afghanistan, whether they are in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in Morocco, we believe that the Muslims will work sometime, will change this strategy. And that's why I'm saying this is only a temporary occupation. It will never stay for long.
But you say it's not going to stay for long, but it has been staying for a very long time, Abu Bakr. And from what we are seeing, from what's happening in Israel, we don't see any of that dissipating or kind of going around or coming back to its previous state as it was. Palestinians are still suffering every single day on the hands of the Israelis. Is there some kind of a plan of action that the Palestinians have in mind in case that the reaction from the world bodies is not positive as it has been in the past as well?
Let me just mention one thing. You see, the occupation in the nation's time, it may take time, but it is just 70 years. It's not that much old, and it's not that much, you can say for a long time. 70 years, it's been only one or two generations. There's another generations will come. You see, we had the British colonization all over the Muslim world. Now they are gone. So it also will go. It will go. It will take time, that's for sure. But we have to struggle for our freedom. We have to struggle for our people. We should never stop, our own struggle. And of course, the belief or the hope in the international world or international community, it is always there, because there are always people who actually work for justice and also want to give justice for the people. So we are not denying that, but we are saying that we should all work to the same cause for the Palestinian justice, for the Palestinian land. Not only to fight this annexation, no. We have to fight back for the whole Palestine. It should all return back to the Muslim and to the Palestinians.
Is there some kind of a document that has been prepared to put forward to the United Nations Human Rights Organization or to other human rights organizations or to the OIC or to the US itself to talk together maybe with US and those Israeli segments of the society that also oppose this annexation? Because I read a lot of human rights organizations in Israel also that are opposed to the annexation of Palestine by Israel.
You see, we believe in one thing. The Yahudis, the Jewish have never accepted any kind of what you can say order from United Nations or from the even the United States. They always work on their own strategy. They always work for their own cause, and they don't actually accept the pressure from outside. They only understand the language of war, the language of strength. So the real thing, the effective thing will be only the people on the ground, the Palestinians on the ground who will rebel back and who will stop them from their own strategy.
All right. Abu Bakr Mehta, thank you very much to have joined us. And I hope and I sincerely wish that there is a resolution to this Palestinian dispute, as there should be a resolution to the Kashmir dispute. Now, speaking of the Kashmir dispute, our second segment is about the Indian atrocities in Indian-held Kashmir and the Indian annexation of Kashmir, and of course the whole change of the situation in the region since the 5th of August last year, and then the different laws that have been brought forward, and the continued harassment of the hapless Indian Muslims in Indian occupied Kashmir and in other parts of India as well, the minorities that the Hindu BJP government calls them. Now, Prime Minister Imran Khan also approached the United Nations Secretary General and world leaders over the issuance of Kashmiri domiciles to the Indian citizens. That is the latest step in that respect. Asma Shakir Khaja, Foreign Affairs expert, joins us. Asma, thank you very much to have joined us. Asma, do you see a bright light at the end of the tunnel?
It depends upon what is our definition of bright light. If our definition of bright light is that Kashmiri standing up for their rights and standing tall against the atrocities of Indian armed forces, then yes. But as you see that first of all, I would like to mention one thing, that this term Indian annexation of Kashmir, I don't accept it as a term. The correct term maybe would be the Indian colonization of Kashmir, because India is a colonial occupant of Kashmir. And annexation is never been there because Kashmiri people never supported or verified this annexation. So we need to understand this difference, because when we are dealing with India, it is really important to understand and use the correct terminology. So this Indian colonial occupation of Kashmir definitely will not bring the desired results for Indian government, because for last 72 years, trends or indicators, they say that India was never successful in occupying Kashmir, in terrifying Kashmiri people by any mean or any mean of brutality they used against Kashmiris. They have tried a lot.
You talk of colonization. Isn't this colonization becoming more and more stringent every passing month, every passing year, by different laws that they are putting into place?
Yes, the more Indian government is using draconian laws, colonial tactics, subjugation of Kashmiris, denying them of their basic rights or human rights, everything, the militarization of Kashmir, the use of force to deal with the civil conflict, all this is polarizing the society and distancing India from Kashmir. As I always say, that on 5th August last year, what action in Modi government took by abrogating the Article 370, it was actually a matter of concern or matter of cheating with the pro-Indian Kashmiris, though they are in almost like negligible number, but yes, they were those people who trusted India for their autonomy and survival. But Indian government, at least like as usual, cheated them as well, because though that Article 370 was not incorporated in Indian Constitution with the will of the majority of Kashmiri people. That was that was an agreement with which Kashmiri youth, Kashmiris, in majority, they considered that political figure as a betrayal with Kashmiri people. So that is why
Asma, you say it's a betrayal of the Kashmiri people. I totally get you, and I totally side with you on that. And I totally understand when you say it's not annexation, but it's colonization. But despite that, do you feel that in his 2 stints of power, Narendra Modi has more or less brought to the forefront the actual mindset of the Hindu majority of India, what they want to do with the Muslims and other minorities, what they want to do with the people of Indian occupied Kashmir? Is he not the mouthpiece of these Hindu majority fanatics?
Definitely, Modi is a representative of Hindu fascism. Even I will not call it fanatic. It is a fascism which which world is known like. We know about Nazi fascism, an ideology which doesn't allow other ideologies to exist and even to have the equal respect in the society. Modi is a face. Modi unmasked the Indian radicalism, which they were using to fool the international community for several decades. Modi unmasked it, and Modi is itself is a representative of a Rashtriya, of Hindutva, of Hindu fascism, which is about creating an ideal Hindu state in whole South Asia, and that is why you can see, that with Nepal, with Bhutan, with China, with Pakistan, India is having problems. Why? Because they wanted to subjugate regional countries or undermine their importance by using these aggressive postures as a manifestation of Hindutva ideology, which is a power-centric, rather I would say, which is an ideology which expresses power lust and manifestation of this rude and inhuman behavior towards the other states which are smaller in the region.
All right.
And
All
that,
right. Kindly
and
stay online with me. Asma, we've been joined by Mir Adnanur Rahman. He's a senior analyst. He joins us from Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much, Mir Adnan Saab, to have joined us. Power lust ideology of the Narendra Modi government. Will there be an end to it?
Thank you very much for taking me this opportunity. You are right, I agree with Asma. There is no end of this powerless ideology of Modi and the fanatic mindset of the RSS. Unfortunately, right now, Delhi is being controlled by a fascist regime. They have their own actually expansionist agenda, and they have been working on their agenda. At one side, they are actually focusing on the minorities, particularly Muslims in India, men in India, and on the other hand, they have been carrying out a genocide in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where they have been killing innocent Kashmiris every day. So I think this whole mindset, this fanatic mindset of Modi and his allies who are actually ruling in everywhere in different states of India, they have their own agenda and they just want to transfer this secular India into a fanatic fascist India, which they have been doing very fastly.
Have they achieved their goals in your point of view, Mir Adnan?
To great extent, if you see the analysis of different people who are actually even working in India or outside India, and they are looking India in a different perspective. So after the CAA and after the so many episodes of lynching of Muslims and Christians in different parts of the India, and the way Modi did actually an unlawful and immoral annexation of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir on 5th August, and the way they have actually introduced new rules in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So of course that represents the mindset of the Hindutva, and they have actually they are not actually giving respect to any resolutions of the United Nations Security Council or any principles of humanity, principles of the UN Charter, or even the Constitution of India, which talks about the secularism, which talks about the respect, which talks about the humanity.
So-called secularism or so-called democracy, that is India.
Yeah, of course, so-called democracy in India, and they have actually transformed this India into a kind of India, which is actually visible in its all manifestations from Delhi to different capitals.
All right. Asma, are there any similarities? Because I see a lot between what is happening between Israel and Palestine and what's happening between India and Indian occupied Kashmir.
Definitely, the role model for Modi is to subjugate Kashmiris is definitely Israel, and we have seen throughout the history India tried to apply the Palestine the way Israel occupied Palestinian territory, that model in Kashmir and non-Kashmir to deal with the freedom fighters, to deal with the freedom struggle of Kashmir. India looked towards Israel and their tactics. But I would like to mention one thing here, that what Modi is not only unmasked this actual face of Hindu state, Hindu Rashtriya, but it also in latest India-China border clashes, an inability or non-capability of Indian armed forces and Indian political regime is also been highlighted to protect their stance and to stand on their stance for a longer period of time. So
All right, Asma, you
definitely,
said there have been certain ideologies that have been put on the forefront that have been highlighted due to what is happening in Indian occupied
number
Kashmir.
one is
Now, are
fascism
there
and
some segments,
Nazism.
Asma, I'd like to ask, are there some segments in the Indian society, in amongst the Indian so-called democracy or the politicians in the Indian government who are opposed to what Narendra Modi is doing? And will this continued spate of aggression or harassment that Narendra Modi's government is continuing, will it have a backlash on his government in the coming years? What's your take on it? Or will everybody
Yes,
just
Umar.
accept it as it is and say, oh, that's part of life in India?
Yes, Umar, you have asked a brilliant, excellent question. But you know, there are alternate voices and narratives in India simultaneously. Like we know about this Navjot Singh Sindhu, and there are several Indian politicians who are in favor of bilateral peace with Pakistan, peace through negotiations. But the problem is that Hindu fascist and Modi, as the representative of Hindu fascism, has reduce the audibility and visibility of those sane voices in favor of peace. Those sane political voices, like Jaswant Singh, like L.K. Advani, there are so many names who, whenever they supported peace with Pakistan, their political careers were ended by those Hindu fascists, and now we
But I don't see
cannot
the career of
see them.
Narendra Modi ending anytime soon. Do I? Or should it end? Or will it end?
If Indians want to do something good for their own country, then ideally his regime should end. But I just remind like name of Mani Shankar Iyer, and when he talked about peace with Pakistan, an FIR was registered against him being traitor. So this is what Modi's political agendas have cultivated for India, that whosoever talks about peace, he does not have a political constituency, he does not has a political power, and peace with Pakistan is not a political narrative, a saleable election manifesto in Indian politics. So I don't see that Modi's era would be ended, because Modi is being trapped in the web of hatred, animosity, false war, jingoism, and all that aggressive posturing which he constructed to gain political mileage and political success in domestic politics within India. But now he himself has become prisoner of that web. So I don't
right.
see that that soon Modi. I don't see him going anywhere anytime
All
soon.
right, Mir Adnan Rahman, a web of hatred, jingoism, and Modi being cornered due to his own very policies. Is it going to have an effect, or are the Indian people being brainwashed slowly and steadily by this RSS and BJP mindset?
Mindset, we should not call it only Modi mindset. It is basically the mindset of the RSS. It is the
Yes,
mindset of
exactly.
the BJP. And you know, in India, if you see the situation, RSS is a fascist party, and nobody even dare to speak against the policies of Modi or BJP RSS. If anyone dares to speak, even the same voices in India, the secular voices in India, those people like Arundhati Roy, or those people who actually are supporting the peace process or bilateral negotiation with Pakistan, or sometimes they talk about in favor of the Kashmiri people. But they have no space in today's India, because there is no tolerance right now. If you speak against Modi, or if you speak against any policy of the Modi, the next day you will face a lot of criticism, not only on the newspapers, but people will come to your house and they will surround you. So I think
Exactly.
same voices have no space in India, because India has become the most intolerant place right now in the world.
All right. Thank you very much, Mir Adnan Rahman. Asma, India has become an intolerant state. What is the future of India? What's your take on that?
If you allow me to share my honest opinion as an
Please,
academician.
please.
Yeah, see, Hindu fascism and Hindu policy of divide and rule, and Hindu ideology of people being lesser being because of their religion, faith, color, complexion, That resulted into the creation of Muslim League and eventually in the creation of Pakistan. So if 90 years back or 72 years back, such policy of hatred and exclusivism, which excludes all others and which creates walls between us and the rest, me and you, if that could not produce any positive results for at that time for Hindu fascists, how can it produce anything else right now when world is more civilized, when there is more values for ethical values in practice, when international law is more strong? So how world can do anything else right now?
All right, thank you
So
very
the
much,
result,
Asma Shakir Khaja,
result
to
is
have been very blunt, been very open and candid about what India is doing to the hapless people in Indian occupied Kashmir and even beyond. And let's see how it all plays out in the days and months to come. Will the RSS policies continue to kind of dissipate themselves in India and beyond, or will there be a stop to that? Well, that brings us to the third segment of the day. Our third segment, ladies and gentlemen, is about sexual harassment. Nothing new in the world, nothing new in Pakistan. We've had different students protest, whether it be in Balochistan or in Lahore or in other parts of Pakistan as well, on the attitude of the teachers and the administrative community against them. But this time what has happened in Lahore, in LGS A1, in one of its branches, is that many girls have come out with actual proof, that is in the form of texts, in the form of WhatsApp messages, in the forms of videos, in the forms of pictures that have been sent to them by 4 perpetrators of the LGS A1 school that have since then been sacked by the administration, who have been sexually harassing them for favors or for other things, whatever that might be. But in any educational institution, this should never be. When parents send their children, whether they be girls or boys, in any educational institution, whether it be private, public, or even a madrasa, they want their children to be taken well care of. They want their children to get the best of education. They don't want their children to be harassed. They don't want their children to live in a time of guilt because of what they have been harassed or what they've been propositioned as. Now, in the latest spate of developments after what has happened in the LGS A1, now Usman Buzdar, Chief Minister of Punjab, has taken notice of this incident. That is the latest. He has directed the CCPO Lahore to carry out an impartial inquiry into the incident, and he has said that the harassment of these students will not be tolerated at any cost. Now, these 4 employees, that include a teacher, were sacked by the administration after they were accused of sexually harassing female students. Now, numerous students have come out. They've said that they have been harassed by these very people since 2016. We are in 2020, ladies and gentlemen. Since 4 years, this has been going on in one private institution, in one institution that is very reputed in Lahore. And it is only now, because all of these girls have come out, that the action has been taken. But the administration should have taken action even before these girls came out, because of course they knew what was happening on it. Maliha Hussain, social activist, joins us online. Maliha, thank you very much to have joined us. Maliha, how do you see this whole action that is taken by the Punjab government? Of course, Shiri Mazari also tweeted, Murad Ras also said that he's going to take care of it, and now Usman Buzdar Sahab has said. Do you feel any tangible action is going to take place by the Punjab government and subsequently by other governments so that harassment incidents like these do not occur in the future?
Yes, you see, Pakistan actually was the first country in South Asia that passed not 1 but 2 pieces of legislation to curb sexual harassment in all of our organizations, including educational institutions. My first question would be to the grammar school, asking them how come they have not complied with the law? Because the requirements of compliance are that they're supposed to form a 3-member standing inquiry committee with at least 1 woman member. And it's their job to inform all of their community, like the teacher, admin, and students, informing them that if any of you is sexually harassed, you need to go and report to this committee. They will conduct an inquiry within 30 days according to the law, and the decision is implemented within 7 days. So the first thing is, how come grammar school has not complied? And secondly, if this case has come out, the government should be telling them to comply with the law, because this law was passed in 2010, before the 18th Amendment. It's applicable throughout the country. There is an ombudsperson appointed according to this law for Punjab and in all the other provinces also. So instead of forming other committees, conducting inquiries, what happened, what didn't, I think the focus needs to be, the government needs to be telling not just grammar school, but all the educational institutes that we have a law. The objective of this law was to clean out the environment so that children can actually focus on learning, the reason why parents send them to school. So that is, I think, where the focus needs to be. What happened in Balochistan University or Gomal
Exactly.
University. So at all levels, all educational institutions are supposed to comply with this law. So
All right.
that is what we need to focus on.
All right, Maliha, there has been a statement after all the pressure that came under on the LGS school. Director of the branch, Nighat Ali, said in a statement she will not allow any cycle of ongoing harassment and victimization to continue. She said nothing would remain unaddressed or unresolved. But didn't the administration know about this fact that was going on since 2016 and did just put a blind eye on it?
Sexual harassment is a stigmatized issue in our society. Nobody likes to talk about it because they don't want to be judged by people around them. So it is the responsibility. The management should have talked to their teachers, saying that if any one of you is caught or reported harassing, you could lose your job. So telling people what sexual harassment is, complying with the law, making it clear that we will not tolerate any sexual harassment. They have to start talking about it so that when they inform the students, I've seen it in so many educational institutions. The first awareness session you have where you inform teachers and students, a few of them start speaking out and reporting cases, saying that, okay, now they know what I'm going through. They have encouraged me to speak out. Maybe I can go and talk to them and maybe they will resolve my issue. But somebody in the management has to start talking about it first. And without that, nobody will report a case. So complying with the law,
this whole toxic culture in the schools, in the educational institutions, it is not something new to countries like Pakistan or to other countries. But why has this been going on for so long? Why did it take so many girls to come out and talk about in social media for an action to take place?
The management needs to be held accountable by the provincial government. Why didn't they do anything about it? Why didn't they comply? See, it's the job of the government to make these laws. It's our job to implement them. Why didn't the school management comply with this law? Why didn't they talk to the teachers and students about this issue? They should have done this in 2010. Forget about 2016. We don't know how many cases there have been between 2010 and 2016.
Exactly.
Because this is a very prevalent issue in our society.
And of course, in our society, there are many people who are told to just not say anything because it will bring a bad name to their families.
Right. It is a stigmatized issue. Nobody likes to talk about it. But unless and until we talk about it, how will we resolve this very serious issue? So I think the first thing is that the provincial government needs to hold the management of the school accountable. They need to form a committee, get them properly trained, handle this issue, or this case could go to the provincial ombudsperson. There is a very nice, competent person appointed,
All right.
Rukhsana Gilani, who is the provincial ombudsperson. She has her office on Canal Road in Lahore.
All right.
They can contact her. She can take care of this case because she's competent enough to handle these cases.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Maliha Hussain, to have given us, of course, your point of view on this issue that has been stigmatizing girls of the LGS A1 since 2016, and a lot of them have now finally come out. And an inquiry commission has been put into place. The Chief Minister of Punjab has talked about it. The Education Minister of Punjab, Murad Ras, has talked about it. Shri Mazari Sahiba has talked about it. Let's see if any tangible action takes place. Let's see if the administrations of schools such as the LGS A1 and others take concrete action so that things like these do not happen in the future. Our last segment of the day is an ode to the doctors, an ode to the frontline workers, especially in these days of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the ones who forsake their lives, who forsake their hours to help all those children, adults, elderly to get well from the COVID-19. And they are there. I know so many of my friends who are there at different hospitals who do 24-hour duties, sometimes even 48-hour duties in order to save lives, in order to protect people, in order to prevent them from getting complications from the COVID-19. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is the World Doctors' Day. This is an opportunity to raise awareness about the doctors' roles in our daily lives, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's show. We hope you understood a little bit of what we are trying to bring forth to you, whether it be international politics, regional politics, national politics, social issues, or even helping those who help us in times of need, such as doctors. We salute you all. Allah Hafiz.